game developer Naughty Dog sold the rights to Crash, it seemed that all hope was lost. However, when game developer Eurocom Entertainment developed the controversial but also well-received Crash Bash, things began to look bright for a young Bandicoot. The next game was an important one though, as it was the first platform game made after the widely successful Crash Bandicoot Warped. It would also serve another important role, as it would be the Bandicoot's debut into the next generation of consoles, and it was also the first multi-platform Crash game. It looked like the Wrath of Cortex would be carrying a lot of weight, and if it didn't deliver, then people would be pissed. Can this game live up to the insane expectations, or will it flop and rest as a mediocre Crash title? Well, it's time to find out, and wait a second. Where have I seen that logo before? Oh, you gotta be shitting me. So, unless you're like Crash Legend 25, you're probably smart enough to piece together this simple fact. I don't like the Wrath of Cortex. I don't think this game is very good. Now, at first I was skeptical of this game being developed by the same people who made Sonic 3D Blast, but I decided not to judge that way. After all, Naughty Dog's first game was some shitty Mortal Kombat clone, and Insomniac's first game was some shitty Doom clone on the PS1. They then went on to make my fucking favorite game of all time! So, if the company that made Wrath made 3D Blast, I don't give two shits. Plus, this game was big for Crash, and there really hasn't been a major fuck-up in the series so far. Some of the previous game's flaws brought their scores down, like Crash 1's bad controls or Warp's tedious relic collecting, but none of the games before Wrath were really bad. But our first problem comes in here. This game was only made in 6 months, which is half the time of CTR. Newsflash, 6 months is not long enough to make a video game. Alright, I'm gonna speak directly here for a second. Now, some people may defend this game and say,
they were only given 6 months! Universal rushed them! It wouldn't be bad if they were given more time!
Okay, this may be true, but just because the game was given a rough schedule doesn't affect the way I will view the finished product. I'm not reviewing what this game could have been, I'm reviewing what it is. So don't tell me that it was rushed, because I ain't having that shit! Obviously, I hate this game, but as of right now, I haven't really explained why. Well, the video isn't over yet, you asshole! So, let's start a new game. We tick our name in, and we get to watch the first we get to watch the first loading screen. Well, games need to load. CTR and Bash did, so I'll be patient. Okay, this is taking a while. Yes, one of Wrath's problems is that it loads. A lot. Wanna take a guess how long the load times in Wrath are? Huh? Wanna guess? Well, guess what? The load times are 39 seconds! You're gonna make me wait 39 seconds to get into a level? That is way too long! Seriously, why the hell do these load times need to be so long? Crash Team Racing's load times were only 5 seconds. Fucking Christ, 39-second load times! That's a goddamn joke! Oh geez, I'm sorry, I didn't know Wrath of Cortex was a PSP game. And honestly, there is no reason for the loading times to be this long. Now, you can say,
but Michael, it's a PS2 game. The game is more heavy on graphics, so it needs to load longer. Plus, it's early PS2.
And to that I say,
not really.
Look at Jak and Daxter, released before Wrath of Cortex on December 4th, 2001. Not only does Jak and Daxter have no loading times, but it also looks a lot better than Wrath. And it's just all around a better game. Don't get me wrong, I do have a bone to pick with Jak and Daxter, but it's hell of a lot better than this shit. Anyway, let's get this over and done with then. So, we see Cortex's new space station, and we see that Uka Uka is lecturing the villains from Crash 3 for actually being decent bosses this time around. Uka Uka wants them to think of a good plan. After much debate, Cortex recommends that Uka Uka receive the help of ancient masks known as the Elementals. Meanwhile, Crash and Coco are enjoying their well-deserved rest when suddenly...
What's happening? No, it cannot be. Oh, no!
Okay, are you fucking kidding me with these graphics? I mean, for shit's sake, it's Crash's debut into the next generation, and it looks this bad? My god, Enter the Dragonfly looked better than this. Aku Aku suspects that Uka Uka is up to something, so he goes to... wherever this place is, because he knows Uka Uka will be there somehow. And the two start arguing about nothing. Hey, just like old times, right? Uka Uka reveals that he has gotten the attention of ancient masks known as the Elementals. There's a water mask, an earth mask, and an air mask. But everything changed when the fire mask attacked. The masks are Rocco, Wawa, Lolo, and Pyro, voiced respectively by Tom Wilson, Arlie Ermy, Jess Harnell, and... Wait, am I reading this correctly? Seriously? Mark Hamill is doing the voice of Pyro? I'm sorry, but that's just so weird seeing a big-name actor play a minor role. I mean, seriously, what if they got George Carlin to play a character in Cars, or for Tara Strong to play a character in Skylanders? Alright, Wrath of Cortex, let's see how good you are at a game called Math. There are 4 masks. Each need 5 crystals to be locked. So, 4 times 5 equals 25? This game has 25 crystals total, but if first grade taught us anything, it's that you should only be required to collect 20. What the hell, guys? The last 5 crystals are absolutely pointless, and only serve to emphasize this game more as a warped clone. So, when Crash goes to the warp room, he discovers that Cortex has created a new Bandicoot to combat Crash named Crunch, who is voiced by Kevin Michael Richards. So, a bunch of bullshit happens, and now he can start to play. This game is structured exactly like Crash 2 and 3. You collect 5 crystals, then fight a boss. After you get 5 crystals, you beat the final boss and the game ends. This game, like Warped, features vehicles, and, just like Warped, it goes way too far with them. Okay, in Warped, 17 of the 30 levels involve vehicles. Want to take a guess how many vehicle levels there are in Wrath? 22! 22! Are you kidding me? That is way too many! When I saw Warped's jet ski, I thought I had seen the worst. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Don't get me started on some of the vehicles in this game, like the submarine. This is the worst vehicle I have ever controlled, period! It's actually worse than the skateboard from Spyro 3. Yeah, I'm not kidding, guys. It's that bad. The hitbox on your sub is way too large, and your projectile is so tiny. Plus, the enemies in these levels are moving way faster than you can, and the screen isn't zoomed out far enough. You can very easily get hit by something you would not have time to react to. Oh, and when you're trying to get a relic, it doesn't fucking help. One of this game's major flaws, aside from everything else, are the controls. Crash's controls feel slippery and weird. The engine doesn't feel as tight and precise as Crash 2's. It doesn't help, especially when the game gets harder. That is, if the game ever decides to get harder, because this game is just too damn easy. The challenge doesn't come from the design of the level, but from the difficulty of controlling these terrible vehicles. The levels that don't have vehicles are just so fucking easy. I wasn't expecting it to be as hard as Bash, but I was expecting a little bit of a challenge. Seriously, they could have called this Crash 2's final boss the game. It's that easy. Like last time, the power-ups are back. And I have to say, I didn't think you could get a power-up more useless than the Super Belly Flop, but I was wrong. The Tiptoe allows you to walk on nitros. How pointless. In addition to the shitty controls, the levels just don't feel designed very well. The levels, for one, feel way too long. Seriously, levels can drone on forever. Also, Traveler's Tale's idea of a level being hard is it having nitros everywhere. Guys, you can't just fill a level with nitros and call it a night. You need to actually incorporate parts of the level to make it challenging. I didn't talk up Warped too much in my review, but that's because everything it did right was really already covered in Crash 2, aside from some of the power-ups and bosses. But Warped is a really good game. Notice the way the parts of the level are incorporated to make the game challenging. The guys who would start fires on the bridge, the monkeys carrying the barrels, these fucking guys. Wouldn't it be cool if Wrath of Cortex did stuff like that? Nope, stock enemies, nitros, that's it.
Now that's top quality!
The bosses in this game feel bland. They're not as memorable as Crash 3's or Bash's. Also, they're just way too easy. You don't get to fight all new enemies this time around. Each boss is just Crunch aided by an elemental mask. After each boss fight, the mask is supposedly locked in a hibernation state. I say supposedly because they all show up again in the final boss. Great, guys. We just wasted our time. Well, to tell you the truth, we wasted our time the moment we started playing. Like Warped, gems and relics make a return, and the relics are required for the true ending. And honestly, I cannot be bothered with this horse shit. Just trust me that I've done it before, and it wasn't fucking fun. Practically every gem is accessible on your first try, and there are no secrets in this game. In this case, the levels don't feel as connected. In Crash 2, many of the levels were contingent on others for obtaining their gems. But in Wrath, all of the levels feel sharply spliced apart by loading screens. This game also features death routes, but since you have to wait through a minute and a half of loading if you die, it makes the game, say it with me, less challenging and more tedious. As for the relics, well, they suck, as usual. They're even worse this time around, and they're not fun at all. But by far, the biggest flaw with this game is that it is bland. It has no charm or personality. First off, the textures look hideous. There are tons of times where they try to pull Mario 64s on us by using 2D images that always face the screen. It didn't fool us in Mario 64, and it didn't fool us here. Of course, it was acceptable in Mario 64 because it was made in fucking 1996. Wrath was made in 2002. Remember, this game was made after this game! Also, the levels just look fake and lifeless. Everything in Crash 2 and 3 was vibrant and beautiful. The villains were memorable, and they had so much personality. In Crash 3, practically every death was accompanied by a humorous death animation. Wrath just beats the angel animation to death. Originality? What's that? Also, the bosses aren't very memorable either. In Crash 3, the bosses were intimidating. Each of the villains got uncomfortably close and threatened you by saying, and
I'll roast you.
in Wrath, they all just recite stupid puns about the elements or say 2 words and then disappear. Tell me, how in the hell is this intimidating?
Is there a draft in here?
This game sports an interesting soundtrack. The soundtrack to this game is actually really badass, but as awesome as it is, it's also very out of place. See, when I hear the soundtrack to this game, I don't think of Crash Bandicoot. It sounds odd. Here, just watch. I think I can describe it perfectly like this. Of course, despite the fact that it is out of place, it's also damn awesome. What's interesting is that every level has its own original song. No 2 levels share the same song. Of course, this is done at the expense of the Death Route theme. I miss the Death Route themes from Crash 2. I love how excited and fast-paced they got. As for Crash 3, it sounded okay. I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the Death Route theme in Crash 3. It just doesn't have that same kick that Crash 2's Death Routes had. But you know what? Crash 3's Death Route was at least something, because Wrath doesn't have any theme for the Death Routes. It's just hearing the same music you hear throughout the rest of the level. Wrath of Cortex is about as inspired by Warped as Jak 2 is by Ratchet & Clank. From the obnoxious load times to the bland level design, this game is just horrendous. Nothing about this game stands out. Nothing about this game hits me. It is one of the worst experiences I have had with Crash Bandicoot, and I would advise you to avoid it at all costs. I give Wrath of Cortex a 1 out of 7. So, Wrath didn't turn out so great, but I guess the next game can be kinda good, right guys? right? Oh, the next game's being made on Game Boy? Join me in the next review when I tackle Crash on Game Boy Advance.